Pete Hegseth got a new tattoo? Have you seen his new tattoo?
I have not.
This is Pete Hegseth. Kicked off the day alongside the Warriors of SDVT1 at Joint Base. PHH. These SEALs are the tip of the spear, masters of stealth, endurance, and lethality. He loves saying lethality. America's enemies fear them. Our allies trust them. Proud to spend time with America's best. This is the Secretary of Defense. And if you kind of zoom in here, he has a Deus Volt tattoo, a Crusader tattoo, which we knew he had, and he has a new one here that says Kafir, which basically means non-believer in Arabic. Atheist. It's basically an anti-Muslim tattoo. I mean, he has just like, he in his own mind, he thinks he's saying that he's like defying Muslims and that he's a non-Muslim, but it just means someone who denies God's authority in general. And there are terms in other languages for the other monotheistic religions, Christianity and Judaism, that convey the same thing. Negative connotations for those who reject God. And he's proudly sporting this on his arm. But this is the mentality of someone who toured Israel as a guest of, I believe it was Ateret Kohanim, the group that steals Palestinian homes in East Jerusalem and Hebron and gives them to Jews. And as a guest of the Temple movement, which wants to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and start a apocalyptic religious war with the Muslim world in order to build the third Jewish temple, which will then usher in the reign of the Messiah. And this is, what Pete Hegseth is doing with his time, is getting tattoos to identify with that current in the European far right, that Islamophobic current that really emanates from Israel's settler movement. I mean, how can you think rationally when this is what you are about what's taking place in Yemen or about a possible strike on Iran? It's simultaneously ridiculous and disturbing. And you don't have any tattoos, do you?
No tats. No.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
I feel like the most radical thing you can do now, the most like unorthodox thing you can do now is not have a tattoo. Especially like, Aaron, if you're in Brooklyn. But yeah, I mean, Pete Hegseth. Go ahead.
No.
Pete Hegseth is like him, and he's sort of like the textbook stupid Gentile slave for Israel. That's like what he's sporting on his arm. That's how I see it. And here's another one from a different generation. Hegseth's like the new generation of Christian Zionist. They have tats. They're into lethality. Mike Huckabee, who's nominated as U.S. ambassador to Israel, is sort of like the Depends wearing seniors who get on an El Al flight to Israel direct, that you have to either sit next to them or ultra Orthodox Jews or Israeli army veterans on your direct flight. And they're all wearing like their tour uniform that has an Israeli and a US flag on it and a cross on it. He represents that generation of sort of Gentiles who will do anything that Israel says. And he testified in Congress for his confirmation hearing. And here's one of the few critical exchanges that Mike Huckabee underwent from Chris Van Hollen, the senator from Maryland, who, while voting for various baby buster bomb packages for Israel, has spoken out against the humanitarian catastrophe Israel's been causing.
You said in 2017, and I quote, Israel has title deed to Judea and Samaria, unquote. You did not mean it gave Israel the right to kick Palestinians off their lands in the West Bank. Am I right about that?
Senator, I've never indicated that that was a part of that. I simply referenced the biblical mandate that goes all the way back to the time of Abraham, 3,500 years ago, and that's what I was referencing.
No, I understand.
Oh, the biblical mandate. This is the ambassador.
You have that view, but I'm trying to understand the consequences of that view. So, in your view, if Israel were to annex the West Bank, what rights would Palestinians have? Because when I asked you that question yesterday, you focused on the right to work, economic opportunities. So my question today is, would those Palestinian individuals in an annexed West Bank have the same legal and democratic rights as Israeli Jews living in the West Bank?
Annexation does not mean displacement of people.
No, I'm not asking about displacement right now. I'm asking if they remained there, would they have equal rights to Israeli Jews living on the West Bank?
There would be security. There would be opportunity.
That's not what I'm asking.
Okay.
You know that.
No, I'm
So I'm asking whether they would have
understand
equal legal rights, whether they would have the same legal rights as a Israeli Jew who settled on the West Bank living side by side. Would they have the same legal and political rights?
Senator, if you mean would they be able to live freely, they already do.
How about voting? You're suggesting that the West Bank become part of Israel. Are you suggesting that Palestinians living in the West Bank should have the right then to vote in elections in Israel?
Senator, let me correct and say I'm not suggesting.
Let me
because I have
move
to
on.
carry out the policies of the president.
I do want to.
Well, that's the future U.S. That's the incoming U.S. ambassador to Israel. He believes that Israel has a biblical mandate to annex the West Bank. Palestinians don't exist and can't answer what role Palestinians will play in a Judea, a state of Judea that controls everything from the river to the sea. And,
what a political spectrum we have. So Mike Huckabee is the incoming ambassador to Israel. Just outright fanatic. His extremism is off the charts, as you can see there. But who does he replace? Jack Lew, Biden's ambassador to Israel. And what did Jack Lew do? Jack Lew was literally editing USAID and State Department reports to basically downplay the fact that there was warnings of famine in the Gaza Strip because of the Israeli blockade that Jack Lew, on behalf of the Biden administration, was helping to enforce. So we get the secular, sort of liberal-minded people who are literally editing their own government's reports to suppress warnings of famine and starvation. That's like the liberal end of the spectrum. And then the Trump end, the extreme end of the spectrum is someone like Mike Huckabee, who just will outright say that Palestinians aren't a people and that Israel has a biblical right to all of Palestine, and Palestinians there have no rights. I mean, that's the spectrum we have right now in the U.S.
Daniel B. Shapiro, Obama's ambassador, I called him reciprocal ambassador. He stayed in Israel and lived there after his term expired and raised his children as Israelis, and then went to consult for the NSO group, which implants Pegasus spyware in the phones of journalists and human rights activists. Then you had David Friedman, this Likudnik freak who actually is a member of a settlement, Beit El, in the West Bank, donates money to that settlement, recently took a picture of himself in the occupied Golan Heights and declared it's Israel's forever. This guy who, like, I don't know, his family was like, probably like the dad was like the fishmonger down in the shtetl down the road from where my family was in Ukraine. And now he's taking the Golan Heights forever. And then you got Mike Huckabee. Oh, Jack Lew. What was his qualification? He was a Goldman Sachs banker who became Treasury Secretary and basically forgave all of Wall Street's sins after the financial crisis. This guy's like a walking anti-Semitic stereotype. Then he gets to become Israel's ambassador to help grease the wheels of its Holocaust machine against the Palestinian Untermenschen. And now we've got Mike Huckabee. I mean, it really makes me, I don't know what Pete Hegseth's doing. I'm going to go, if I want to advance in government next and be the next Israeli ambassador, I'm going to get a Meir Kahane tramp stamp and take my kids to see Deborah Messing's October 8th 3 times this week. I mean, that's the only way forward here. Ambassador. What a mockery of diplomacy. Mike Huckabee. Someone called him Cuckabee. I mean, that just shows. If I was a Christian, this would drive me crazy. Just the complete corruption of American Christianity.
Yeah, and also being used to attack Christians in the birthplace of Christ. That's what Israel is doing. They're not just going after Muslims, on behalf of Islamophobes like Pete Hegseth, but they're going after Christians as well. But no one cares because it's Israel doing it, so they get to pass through whatever they want.
Christians like Mike Huckabee don't even see Palestinian Christians as Christians because they were not born again in the blood of the Lamb, because they're observing traditional Christianity, the kind of Christianity that has been observed since the days of the apostles. The Samaritans are in Nazareth, but that's just so unfamiliar to Christians like Mike Huckabee.